Welcome all to Aero Lords of Metal, all our friends in the Netherlands. Today, we got one and only Ross Dolan from Immolation. How you doing, Ross?
Good. How's everybody doing?
How's everyone doing over in the Netherlands? And we have Bob over here. So, of course, wanted to start this today. It's been quite a while since you guys have been on the road, I guess, right? A couple of years, and you've done a couple of tours since this whole COVID thing?
We did one tour in February here in the U.S., our first tour out of the gate for the new record. That was in the States, and we did Canadian shows as well. And then we did a short 2-week run, which culminated with the Maryland Death Fest at the end. So those were only 2 runs we did, proper runs. We did some one-offs in Europe. We did the Netherlands Fest. Yep. We did a festival in France, and then we did a festival, the UK Death Fest, not too long ago. Cool. So that's all we did in Europe. Mostly U.S. stuff right now, just because of, obviously, things were a little difficult earlier in the year to kind of coordinate stuff in Europe. So,
Yeah, and thinking back to, 2019, 2020, before all this shit happened, when things were at their worst, did you ever think, holy fuck, we might not ever get back on the road? Like, this is it?
I never thought that. I mean, we knew when New York State shut down in early March, we knew that it was going to be a while before we got out there, so we were pretty realistic about that. I mean, the world doesn't just shut down, lightly, you know what I'm saying?
True.
So when that happened, we were like, okay, well, it's going to be at least a year or more, so we kind of, we were in, prep mode for the new record anyway, so it just brought us more time to kind of focus on the writing. So that's kind of what we shifted focus to. We had finished all the touring for Atonement at that point. So, we were already, the mindset was to go into the writing mode for the new record anyway. So that's where we were. So
cool.
So we knew it was going to be a longer period of downtime once that started,
Yeah, cool. So this particular tour, this brings together a couple of really old school friends in you and Cannibal.
Phenomenal tour, yeah.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
And like going back to like fucking 1990, October 30th, Buffalo, Day of Death.
Yeah.
It's insane that we're here almost, I guess, 30 plus years.
It really is. I mean, and we've kind of all discussed this, all the bands, we've known Cannibal since the late 80s. We exchanged demos back in the day. We were really good friends with them back in the early days when we were all starting and coming up, I remember when Cannibal toured with Dark Funeral back, in the 90s, I think it was, when they had the older lineup. So we kind of go back a long way with Dark Funeral and so does Cannibal, and the Black Anvil guys, I mean, we just recently kind of, got to, share the stage with them back in 2017 on the Mayhem tour. Mm-hmm. But, they're old school guys too, man. They've been part of the New York scene, in different bands and stuff throughout the years, like the last 30 years,
Guys, you gotta be behind the cage if you're
So anyway, there's a lot of history with all the bands.
Cool.
Eric Rutan in the mix now, who was at our very first show in May of 1988. When we played with Ripping Corpse and Revenant and Deranged. Back then, I don't even know if we had a demo out back then. So Eric's been there for a long time. So yeah, these all people who have been in the game for 35 years or so. You know what I'm saying? And it's nice that we're all here doing something together again and something on this scale,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It's very cool,
Yeah, very cool. So you think back, like, again, 30 plus years. Prior to that show in 1990 in Buffalo, if you were to go back 30 years, you're looking at the start of rock and roll, which is an insane amount of time, like from, late 50s to 1990 and 1990 to now.
Yeah.
I'm curious to think how you think in that amount of time from 1990 to now, the type of changes that have happened in death metal. Similarly, when you think about the start of rock and roll, to the start of 1990 when you did that show? Like,
you know, you had the obvious changes. I mean, technology changed a lot. You know, technology allowed us to be more in touch with fans all over the globe. It allowed us to kind of work on music remotely, and, you know, so we don't have to be in the same room, you know, composing songs together. So it made things a lot easier, you know, and it connected people far and wide. So I think that's probably the best takeaway from all that. The internet helped that a lot, you know. It connected people in a bigger way, you know. Back then our internet was, you know, the mail, the post, you know.
Pick up the phone.
Letters,
and,
phone
yeah.
and letters. I mean, that's how we networked. Letters, sending letters out to people, and, you know, ordering demos and trading demos, the underground trading, tape trading scene. So that to me is probably the biggest. I mean, the passion and just the love of the music has always been strong, whether it's you know, us older guys or like the younger kids coming into the scene now, the younger bands, you know, all the newer bands in the last like 5 to 10 years. I mean, it's still it's still very strong. All these bands are passionate, they're hardworking, so that's the same, you know, that passion and the love for the music, that drive to push things forward, you know, that's still there. I see that in all the younger bands, you know, so that's refreshing for us to see, you know, so
for sure.
So that the end of it, I think, is the same, that die-hard nature of our fans, of all the fans of this extreme music, you know, whether it's death metal or grindcore or black metal. The extreme metal fans are very passionate and very loyal, you know, and, you know, we see that firsthand, you know, when we're out on the road, like in February when we went out, you know, right after the pandemic, like the fans were there, you know. These shows, we're only like 4 or 5 shows in now, but like the turnouts and the responses for every band, like from top to bottom, has been just so over the top.
That's
so
amazing.
And it's good to see. It's you know.
So would you say, like, I guess from the fan perspective, the passion from the fans is still there like it was
Absolutely.
in 1990?
Absolutely.
No change? Just,
I don't think so.
Okay.
I what I see in the younger fans is the desire to go back and explore the beginnings, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's a drive for them to discover like the demo material and the first records of all these bands like ourselves who've been around for a long time, you know. So yeah, they want to go back and, you know, see where our roots were, what we started from, you know, the early thrash scene, you know, and the metal scene, like the Maidens and the Priests. So the younger fans are like really, you know, keen on I think diving into that history and learning about where our roots were, and, you know, enjoying that as well. So I think that's pretty cool, you know?
Cool. Very cool.
Definitely. And I see that in the younger bands, like, you know, the younger bands that we've toured with more recently, they know the older bands from the 80s, you know, and they're wearing the shirts and they know the demos, and I think that's awesome. you know, it's great. But that's how we were, you know. We were the same way back then. You wanted when you liked a band, you wanted to discover everything about that band from the beginning to the current, you know, so.
Some things never change, I guess.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Cool. Now, to talk about Acts of God, I was curious to know, like, when you guys everything was locked down and you guys were sitting around like the rest of us, were you guys still active at all? Were you,
during the pandemic?
Yeah, during the pandemic.
Well, yes. I mean, Bob was continually writing during that time, you know, composing and getting the record finished, you know, and we were going back and forth with ideas that he would have. And
was any of it written prior to the pandemic?
Yeah, there was. There was 3 or 4 songs, right, Bob? About 3 or 4 songs written before the pandemic hit. Yeah. So we had a good jump start, which is unusual for us. So we were like, okay, cool. By maybe a year from now, we'll have this record done and out. But obviously that didn't happen. So we took our time, and, you know, he wrote more songs than we probably would have had on a record. So we had more songs, we had more material, and we had time to really absorb it and to tweak it and to get it to where it needed to be. So there was no rush, there was no, you know, looming timeline or deadlines that we had to kind of adhere to. So yeah, it was nice in that sense. I mean, you know, despite the chaos of what was happening around us, you know. So yeah, we kept busy in that sense, you know, plotting and planning and, you know, writing and learning the music, you know. So
waiting for the eventual return.
And then we all kept busy on our own terms, you know, like, you know, whatever, whether it was doing projects at home, I went back to school, took some classes. So just little things like that, just to, keep your head, from going to that dark place.
Absolutely. Quick question about, you mentioned before, after 9/11, the craziness of that shit, I know it affected you quite personally.
Sure.
It affected the band. Through these past couple of years, did you experience, let me rephrase, you kind of shifted the change in the lyrics after 9/11 from being more of an anti-religion type perspective to be more socially, I guess, reflective?
Yeah, I mean, the anti-religion was still heavy in there. I mean, it just came from a different perspective now. We're talking more about just that after 9/11, that just extreme fundamentalist kind of mindset, you know what I'm saying? So there was definitely a hard shift. And yes, we did look at things on a more broader scale, more socially, like you said, in the social aspects of it. But yeah, I mean, so there was a shift there. I mean,
did the same thing happen with Acts of God then? Like with what's happened over the past couple of years?
No, I don't think so. Okay. I don't think it was... it wasn't a pandemic record lyrically, you know what I'm saying? Although a lot of stuff on the record was things that were happening around us during that time, but it wasn't centered on the pandemic at all.
Okay.
It was still the same old craziness happening all around us, but just during that very dark time, which I think made it worse, So
yeah, absolutely. Going back to, you mentioned you were taking some classes during the pandemic.
Just a few.
Ties into this question. If you were to do a master class of death metal, you have these master classes on the internet now with like the most experts in their field. What would be the one thing you would teach? You guys have 35 years plus experience, or 35 years experience. You got a lot of knowledge. You've refined it. What would your course kind of outline? What do you think you would?
Good question.
To the newer fans or newer bands that might be getting
things don't come easy in this business, so you have to have the will and the drive, and it has to be about the right things. It's if you're in it for, let's say, money and that kind of stuff, maybe not the right business for you. I would advise people to kind of do some soul searching before they dive into this and see what they really want to achieve and what they want to accomplish. We just always enjoyed this music. We enjoyed that connection with our friends and fans, and sharing something that you've created collectively with people all around the globe is very unique. And it's music is a very positive force in our world today. And it always has been. It's one of the few forces that I think kind of unifies people. Mm-hmm. So as long as you don't lose track of that and you're in it for the right reasons, creating something that's unique and something that you're passionate about. I think that would be the first place to start.
I'm signing up for that class, man.
So and then we can get into the nitty gritty. We kind of weed out all the failures right there. So.
Awesome. I'm curious. Had you? Let's go back to '88, maybe even earlier. I don't know when you two met, but let's say your past never.
86, 87.
86.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. During the rigor mortis days, because Bob was obviously one of the main people in rigor mortis, and I knew those guys through their singer Andrew, because Andrew was friends with my group of friends, and I met Bob through Andrew, and we used to obviously go to all the rigor mortis shows. There's only about 5 or 6 shows locally, 4 shows. Wow. So we went to all the rigor mortis shows, and we frequently go down to the rehearsal, in the 80s years around 1987. So I got to go and hang out with them while they were rehearsing and, working on new music, and I loved it. It was just such a cool thing for me, because I played bass, but I was a shitty bass player. I was, just starting. So to see these guys, together, I was like, wow, that's awesome, So, so that's how we kind of met,
Cool.
We went to shows together back then. So it was a very small scene. It wasn't
tight knit.
Yeah, pretty much. So if there was anybody into extreme, back then, it wasn't really, the beginnings of death metal, but you had, like the early German thrash and that, but anybody that you knew was into any of that stuff, you became friends because there was only people around who were into that.
You see that shirt, instant friend.
Exactly. That's how you made friends back then. So
I'm curious, if you guys never crossed paths ever, what do you think Ross Dolan in this alternate dimension we'd be doing today, and Immolation for that matter.
I can't imagine my life without the band or the music. You know? It's been a huge force in my life, I think, for both of us.
Yeah.
Kept us going, keeps us sane.
Mostly.
Keeps us looking forward to things, you know.
Last question, I won't keep you too much longer. I kind of got a fun one here. So basically, sort of rapid fire sort of response thing. So I'm going to name off every album from your catalog in mixed order.
Oh boy.
And I want you to give me one word or a couple of word answer that pops into your mind.
Same word for
It's like fail.
Whatever comes in your mind. One word, few words.
Okay.
Nothing too long. Let's pop these out. All right. First one, Harnessing Ruin.
Stripped down. It's probably the most stripped down album we have as far as the writing and the sound. It's very raw, you know.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Stripped down.
Weird one. I love this one, but different. Providence.
Huh. Short but sweet.
Very. Cars. Toyota. Failure for Gods.
Huh. Squirrely.
Squirrely. I think it's swirly.
Squirrely. Because it's a squirrely album. It's like all over the place.
Cool. And Atonement.
Atonement's a punch in the teeth. Definitely.
I would agree with that. Here and After.
Loose.
You agree with that, Bob?
Very loose, very fluid album.
Loose mathematics.
Majesty and Decay.
And dense. Dense for Here and After, sorry.
Loose
and dense.
Loose and
it's
dense.
A very dense sounding record.
Okay,
Majesty and Decay. A New Beginning. That album started our relationship with Nuclear Blast, and that I think is when things started to kind of get better for us. Production-wise, a lot of things started to happen once that album came out for us. So that was kind of like a new chapter for us. A new chapter. It's a better way to put it. A new chapter.
Cool. These are opening up so many more questions. What am I doing here? All right. Dawn of Possession. This one.
That's
Old school.
Yeah. Good one. Yeah. Good one.
What else do we got? We have, I can't even read, Closer to a World Below.
Dark and epic, I think. That one's just a dark album, an epic album. A lot of fans like that album. I love that album. That's that was also kind of like another closing of a chapter for us, or the beginning of a chapter, because we had the first 3 records, and then that's kind of started the next, so.
Okay, cool.
But it was just a very dark and
it was like a new kind of
sinister album. I like that album.
Okay, cool. And Kingdom of Conspiracy.
Underrated, I think. I think musically that was a good album. The songs were strong. I love the concept, that very Orwellian concept, which is kind of what we were dealing with in the United States around that time, And, I think, certain things lacked on that record production-wise, and I think that's kind of what I think people judged it on. But I think it was a solid record, though.
Cool.
A really good record, so.
And Unholy Cult. What do you got there?
Oh, wow. That was...
Pretty epic, dark, epic.
Yeah, that was a very ferocious kind of cold sounding record. Yeah, I like that record for that. This production on that was very unique for us at the time. It was well produced, but it had a very cold vibe, which I liked about it. And it represented a very cold and dark time in our in our history. So.
Yeah. So. Just to go off on a tangent, because you brought up production. One thing I've always noticed with Immolation is production's never really been consistent.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah. This is true.
Is that
good reasons and bad reasons?
Yeah. Okay. I was wondering how much of that is like kind of out of your hands, or it's been just
out
shit
of our hands.
Yeah.
Most of it's always out of our hands.
Out of our hands.
Okay.
Yeah.
Plus, you think you know what you want, and then it takes time. You learn with every record, at least what suggestions to make or what to bring to the table as far as your ideas. But you know, it took some time, but I think we're in a good place now.
Yeah, for sure.
Fino tracking us. We have Zach Oren doing the mixing and mastering, and Zach Oren's worked with us a lot now. So I think we're in a point where we don't have to worry about the album, you know, not sounding good. It's just a matter of now preferences. You know what I'm saying?
I would agree as a fan that definitely the last two. Fuck, man.
Yeah, you know, so,
Atonement and this one, wow.
Atonement was like a punch to the teeth. I think Acts of God is a double punch to the teeth.
Yeah,
you know?
We're on the right track for sure. And then last one, why we're here tonight, Acts of God.
Yeah, that's my favorite because it's the newest one. I think it's probably our darkest one. And it's just probably some of our best material, you know. I love the production on that record, so yeah, that one's just like a mallet to the face.
Mallet to the face. There you go. Right from the man's. Right from the man himself.
That's my favorite because it's the current one. So
cool. I appreciate you taking the time today.
Sure, man.
To do this, and
awesome.
And looking forward to seeing you guys.
Thanks for taking the time.
Cheers. Say bye to Arrows, Lords of Metal, Netherlands. Till these guys see you.
See you guys next year.
Awesome.